I don't agree about the good guy versus the a-hole. I completely disagree with that. To me, it depends on what partnership looks like. Because oftentimes what happens is women take on the sole emotional labor when it comes to the marriage. They take on the majority of the domestic abilities. And if we're talking about the average person, that woman is taking on all those things and still working, right? So it becomes an uneven division of labor that does not benefit most women. And again, that's dependent on whether or not that partner is contributing to the household outside of providing financially and protecting physically, right? If those are his sole duties and he's washing his hands of everything else, the child rear.
But what do I look like telling a woman, oh, I'm sorry, I only give you protection on the first or second date, but that first date, you're all on your own. You better carry your Glock. It's crazy.
No, I think where I may be confused with what you're saying is because, all right, so maybe not. So Trigger Mike, you before you got married, you dated and was out in the streets, right?
Yes.
And that's not a good guy.
Hold on. So if while you was say you was hanging out with your homeboys and a random girl came and hit on you and you thought you was gonna be dating, right? Like you went out with her the next day. Her ex-boyfriend come up. Are you gonna stand in between them fighting and getting an argument, or are you gonna let her handle that alone?
Uber, please. Check and Uber. I'm out. I'm
So
not
that was
gonna do
my point, Cheeky. It depends on the type of relationship before some of these things get validated. So I was confused as to whether that's why I kind of paired long-term relationship and marriage in the same like the not they
Well,
not opposites, they more
Marcus, I think what Chiki's talking about is the instinct of a man's nature. It may not be a situation in which that's something personal where you would want to step back from it, right? Like, okay, I don't have any rights, or I'm going to get in trouble. I don't have any right to step in here. But the thing I believe Chiki was talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, is a man's instinct to protect a woman that he just met is still there. Men protect perfect strangers. Men
right.
pull random kids they don't know out of the street. I've done that in my own neighborhood, right? Like, hey, car's coming, get out the street. Where's your mom and dad? You know what I'm saying? It's our instinct to protect, especially feminine women. Right now, you see numerous Instagram videos of men beating up on women and other dudes just standing there because in this society, men are beginning not to recognize women as feminine. If a woman is extra feminine and exuding that, it is a man's natural instinct and nature to protect her.
Can I get some of the women, like, can I get a female's perspective on this? Anybody want to go first? Volunteer.
Can we go over the title in a sense, because I did watch that interview and I know Pearl's stance on it, but just to clear it up, because it can get very philosophical and I'm like trying to formulate my thoughts, but just so I can be clear of how we're looking at this question or the statement rather.
Well, it's not really Pearl. It was just Pearl's the interview with Pearl and Hafiz just brought up me bringing this up.
Okay, yeah. So tell me again your premise, I guess.
So I personally feel, because I have some pushback on Cheeky in a second, but I wanted to get you guys' opinion on your feelings. I wanted to know, do you think that women, anything outside of a marriage is beneficial with a man? For example, if you're in a long-term relationship with him, if you're in a life partnership with him, if you are in a situationship with him, is it really if we look at it, the grand scheme of things, assume that you do want marriage, because I want to make sure we know that not every woman, we're going to talk about that later, some women are just not marriage minded. They don't care to be married, they don't want to be married, and they don't ever want to be married. It's not a long-term goal, it's just not, okay? We're not talking about those, but we're talking about women, which is the most marriage minded women, which is most women. Is it beneficial? Anything other than marriage?
Yeah.
I'll let someone else go. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I was getting caught up with Pearl's view, so I'm gonna put that aside. That makes sense though. Okay, but someone else can go.
I'll jump in. I will agree with some of the gentlemen that it depends on the type of man that you're marrying. I don't agree about the good guy versus the a-hole. I completely disagree with that. To me, it depends on what partnership looks like. Because oftentimes what happens is women take on the sole emotional labor when it comes to the marriage. They take on the majority of the domestic abilities. And if we're talking about the average person, that woman is taking on all those things and still working, right? So it becomes an uneven division of labor that does not benefit most women. And again, that's dependent on whether or not that partner is contributing to the household outside of providing financially and protecting physically, right? If those are his sole duties and he's washing his hands of everything else, the child rearing, the domestic, and the emotional all fall on the woman. And that is without like maintenance and care and maintaining the relationship, which your average man does not necessarily do. um, it becomes really burdensome for women. And so I'm still a huge advocate for marriage, but vetting the partner and them showing up in a way that I'm going to use the word is fair becomes important on whether or not it's a real benefit or a burden.
Enos, can I ask a
So real
question?
fast,
Just
go ahead.
can
Yeah, you
I
can
just want to ask Enos a question real quick. What man only does those two things? Like they only what they come home and sit on their butt? Is that what most men do? If I'm hearing you right, it sounds like there's, there's a man that's not doing anything. So is that your experience, or is that the most of you ladies' experience?
Uh, so it's not my personal experience. I've never been married before, so I can't speak to that. However, when we take a look at the breakdown of statistics and the numbers that have been thrown out there about what the division of labor looks like within marriages across North America, that seems to be the trend where men will go to work, come home exhausted, want to kick up their feet, and like their labor is more or less done outside of certain emergencies. Um, and even when we look at kind of these manosphere type of conversations, which is where this originated from, it's very much so if I bring in the money, um, that's it. You got to figure all of the rest of it out.
Yeah, that is such an antiquated. Oh, go ahead, Shan. Sorry.
So just for clarity, you're saying not even the marriage, even the marriage can not even be beneficial. Because I was saying the only thing that is beneficial is the marriage, but you're saying, well, even in the marriage, there may be a lack of benefits. Oh my.